Hello, coaches. Welcome back to the series on the ICF Core Competencies, the 2025 updates. I am Brighton West, and I am the host of this series, and I'm very excited to have George Nuthu with me today. We're going to be working on core competency number 3, establishes and maintains agreements. George and I go back maybe 5 years or so to a video series on the ICF ethics. So, George, it is so wonderful to see you again.
Great to be here. It's great to see you too.
Wonderful. Well, let's dig in, and maybe you could start with a brief overview of this core competency.
So thank you. This is Core Competency 3, establishes and maintains agreement. And this is where it is in 2 parts. There's one part where it is the beginning of a session, and then the second part where it is the session. So the first part is really the agreement, the setting, the stage, the fundamental goals, outcomes of all the stakeholders. It could be with a client, could be with a sponsor, but really this is before the session begins. So it's becoming very clear what is expected of the coach and the client, what they need to agree in terms of the structure, in terms of the goals. And even now there is something new which we'll be talking about, that even the coach needs to start explaining the philosophy of their coaching, what coaching is and what coaching is not. So it really sets the stage of what to expect. And this is like the foundation of a coaching partnership in terms of the coaching program and the coaching sessions that will be in the coaching program.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And so let's go into a little bit about what has changed in the 2025 updates. So if you can just kind of go through those updates.
There are four new updates that have come up. The first one that is included is the coach's philosophy. That never used to be there. Now, even as you're explaining what coaching is and what coaching is not, now we are being urged to talk about our philosophy. What's our scope? What's our approach? What's our style? What are the fundamental principles of our coaching style? So the philosophy has been brought in. And then also there's another new one of commitment to goals. Really now being able to make the client commit. Now it's really, before it was not there. But then now the challenge is, don't just brainstorm and come up with options and come up with designing the actions, but now a level of commitment. And here I see asking the client, so you have said this, so what are you committing yourself to do? That's something new that has come. Then another fourth thing that has come is now an emphasis of a respectful closure. Just really being able to close well, and an emphasis such that there's a partnership. Now, it was clear, but now there's a little more emphasis of that. And then finally, there is one particular one on really revisiting agreements. It talks about, the competencies about establishes and maintains agreement. Now here, this new addition emphasizes that the coaching agreement is longer than just a one-time event. Coaches are now expecting to revisit that agreement as they go along. Because even as a coach educator, I've come to see, once people establish the agreement, they leave it at the first part. But then now it is something that should run through, maintaining it throughout, it being like the focal point of the conversation. Okay? And it can continue even throughout the coaching program, because you can look back to what you had agreed before. And it could be a later session, just even looping that agreement. So now the agreement kind of now becomes a thread that continues throughout the coaching. Now they've actually made it something that we really need to consider and think about. That it's not just one thing you agree at the beginning, but it runs throughout. It's something that is a thread that connects the sessions, connects everything from the beginning of the program to the very end. So that's something new that has come, which I think is really good.
Yeah, that sounds great. So let's go into what this looks like, what this core competency, so we're kind of stepping back to the entire core competency now, what this looks like for everyday coaching.
So the everyday coaching is something that, once you agree, you come and align what you're going to do, what's going to happen. It maintains focus and supports a meaningful progress throughout the coaching journey. Now, that is the way it should be. A coach comes to begin with, agree with the client what to expect, what coaching is not, what coaching is, and every fundamental thing about coaching and their philosophy. And now when you start the session, again, now just agreeing, what is the session? What does the client want to achieve? What's the expectation? What will they think will be the thing they want to get out of the session? So as you're doing this, you're helping the client to align with the issue that they want, and even for you as a coach to understand that, such that now it keeps you focused and it helps the coaching conversation to progress in the way that the client desires or is looking forward to. And the client also knows what to expect from the coach because the coach has explained to them their role. Okay, they'll ascertain to them they are not a therapist, they are not a mentor, they are not a consultant, they are not an advisor. So when those things come, or even now with that understanding, the client will know how to flow with the coach. So it's very clear. So it's almost like a seamless. It's almost, if I'm to use the dance, it's like having two dancers who understand and they are flowing the steps with the music. If it goes loud, they flow that way. Okay, that's the example I would use.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that's the example I would use. So it's seamless. You actually like watching two people dancing and they are in sync.
Okay, great. I love the dance. So
Yeah.
I want to dig into this a little bit differently. So I asked the question a little differently. So
Okay.
what does this look like when a coach is doing this well? So, this might be, a little more, specific things that they've got, I don't want to say check boxes, but
Okay. Yeah.
specific things that they've done if they're doing this, handling this core competency well.
It's when it becomes very clear to the coach and the client what needs to be achieved in the session. All right. So that's why we ask the question, what do you want to talk about? Somebody says, like I do a lot with leaders, a leader may say, I want to be a better leader. And then we go say, what will it entail for you to be a better leader? And they say that. So for me, that session is, this client wants to be a better leader. So that will be my focus. And the way I ask my questions is to help the client want to be a better leader, because it's very clear to me. And the client knows I'm helping them pull from within themselves the elements and the things that will make them a better leader. Because for us, the client and myself are focused. We know this client wants to be a better leader. When they start diverting, my question to them, what you have just said, if they are diverting, I would ask them, what you have just said, how is it connected for you to become a better leader? Because that's what they said they want to be. So what happens is this agreement keeps you on the straight and narrow, if I'm to use that term. Okay. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the session, you're able to reflect back some of the things, as you end the session, as you're closing, so telling a client, just summarize for me the things you said that will make you a better leader. Mm-hmm. And they summarize for you. And then you ask them, so there's this new thing that has been added, aspect of commitment. So what are the things you are going to commit yourself to be a better leader? Mm-hmm. Do you see? So it kind of keeps one just moving in that direction, and it's very progressive because you have a true north. What I usually say is when you agree, you kind of have a true north. So you kind of focus, your eye is on the true north and you're moving towards that. And you're agreeing with the client even at the beginning. What are the outcomes you are expecting for you to be a better leader, as we have said, that is your goal for this session. So something like that.
Wonderful. So now I'm gonna flip things, and we're gonna talk about what it looks like typically when a coach is not proficient maybe at this core competency. What are the mistakes that maybe a newer coach might be likely to make?
Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, Brighton, I fear to think of a session where can you imagine just going into a session that the client and the coach is not sure. So what happens is this: one, there's just that frustration of one, the coach has not established what the client wants to achieve. All right. And as the client is talking, they're trying to figure that out. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then when the client is not clear, the coach themselves is asking questions that the client is wondering, why is the coach asking me these questions? Because what happens is they become questions that have no meaning, in the sense that you're trying to catch up with the client as they are talking, and you're trying to figure out what they want as they go along. And that's when you miss at the beginning saying and agreeing with the client, what do you want us to talk about? But if you just come in and you don't establish that, then you just get into this conversation that is meaningless, that is not focused, that is progressing and taking directions left, right, and center. And what happens is this: the client gets frustrated, the coach gets frustrated, and this whole conversation becomes aimless. It lacks focus, it lacks alignment, it lacks progress, because there is no establishment of what the client wants. And the client is not clear to themselves why the questions the coach is asking and what is their reason. Because they are disjointed. Because here the coach is trying to fish and try to figure out, and it becomes a frustration for both parties.
Yeah, so I think we can see definitely how important this core competency is in explaining when it's not being done well. So, but before we wrap up the video here, I want to ask if there's anything that we missed, anything that you'd like to add before we wrap up.
Before we wrap up, one thing I'd like to add is I've seen in the new competencies, there's a glossary with definitions of words. And I think that's amazing. Even the word philosophy is there, agreement. So even when you look at some of the words that are used in these competencies, if you want to know the exact meaning of what the implication of that is, going to the glossary. So I think it's a neat thing that this glossary has come, such that now you can actually know the meaning of certain words that are used.
Awesome. Thank you for mentioning that. So thank you, George, for providing this this interview with me. And also thank you to all the viewers. And if you're ready for the next core competency about trust and safety, you can head up here. Otherwise, if you haven't watched the whole series, you can watch the series from the beginning down here. So we'll see you in another video. Thanks for watching.